Months passed since the events at the Nexus Rift, and the galaxy slowly began to heal. The ripple that had threatened to unravel reality itself had subsided, leaving behind a fragile but hopeful peace. Humanity emerged from the crisis stronger than ever, not as conquerors or victims, but as guardians of a new era. On Earth, cities buzzed with renewed energy. Monuments dedicated to Dr. Ilara Voss sprang up in every corner of the globe, her name etched into history as the woman who saved existence itself. Yet for those who truly knew her, Captain Rin Kale, Zixthar, Leoricane, and the rest of the Eclipse Vanguard crew, the memorials felt inadequate. Ilara's legacy wasn't just in statues or speeches. It lived on in the way humanity carried forward her vision of unity, courage, and boundless potential. The Council, once an unshakable force, now found itself humbled. Their attempts to suppress humanity had backfired spectacularly, exposing the flaws in their rigid system of control. In the wake of the Rift's intervention, they reluctantly opened diplomatic channels, seeking cooperation rather than domination. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy saw glimpses of true collaboration among species, driven by mutual respect instead of fear. Captain Rin Kale stood on the observation deck of the newly christened Horizon Vanguard, gazing out at the stars. The ship was larger, faster, and more advanced than its predecessor, a symbol of humanity's progress. But despite all the upgrades, Rin couldn't help feeling a pang of emptiness. He missed Ilara's quiet wisdom, her unwavering determination. She had been more than a scientist or ally. She had been a beacon of hope. "She's still watching over us," Zixthar said softly, joining him at the viewport. His golden skin shimmered faintly under the artificial light. "You can feel it, can't you?" Rin nodded. "Sometimes I hear her voice in my dreams, like she's guiding me." Zixthar smiled faintly. "Perhaps she is. The rift changed her, but it didn't take her away entirely. Her essence remains, a part of something greater." Far beyond Earth, whispers of Ilara's presence lingered in subtle ways. Farmers reported crops growing faster after hearing faint melodies carried by the wind. Artists claimed inspiration struck them during moments when sunlight seemed unusually vibrant. Even children spoke of dreams where a kind woman with glowing eyes encouraged them to dream bigger, reach farther. Lyra Kane, now serving as head of security aboard the Horizon Vanguard, leaned against the railing nearby, her cybernetic arm glinting in the starlight. "You think we'll ever see her again?" she asked, her usually gruff tone tinged with vulnerability. "I don't know," Rin admitted, "but if anyone could find a way back, it's Ilara." As the ship sailed through the cosmos, Rin reflected on their journey. They had faced betrayal, loss, and unimaginable challenges, but they had also discovered strength, purpose, and the power of sacrifice. Humanity's awakening wasn't just about transcending physical limits. It was about embracing their role as creators and protectors of the universe. In the distance, a faint pulse rippled through space, almost imperceptible. It carried no sound, yet it resonated deeply within those who felt it. Somewhere, deep within the rift, Ilara's voice echoed softly. "The seed grows." And so, beneath the watchful gaze of countless stars, humanity stepped boldly into its future, a future shaped not by fear, but by infinite possibilities. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council shimmered under a cascade of starlight. The towering pillars, carved from crystalline alloys mined on distant moons, reflected the glow of countless worlds represented within these walls. It was here, in this chamber of unity, or so it claimed, that humanity had chosen to walk away. Dr. Ilara Voss stood at the edge of the crowd, her arms crossed tightly over her chest as she watched history unfold. Her sharp green eyes flickered between the holographic displays floating above the council dais and the tense faces of Earth's delegation. They were leaving, not because they wanted to, but because they had no other choice. For years, humanity had struggled to find its footing among the older civilizations of the galaxy. Now, after decades of compromise and submission, they were done playing by someone else's rules. Counselor Zinfar, A regal being with skin like molten gold and robes that seemed to ripple like liquid fire, stepped forward. His voice boomed through the chamber, echoing off the polished floors. "You cannot simply abandon us," he said, his tone laced with both frustration and disbelief. "Your departure will destabilize everything we have built." Earth's ambassador, Marcus Kane, stood firm despite the weight of thousands of alien gazes fixed upon him. He adjusted his suit jacket, an outdated gesture born more out of habit than necessity, and spoke calmly but firmly. "We are not abandoning anyone," he replied, "but we refuse to be shackled by laws designed to suppress innovation and freedom. Humanity thrives on progress, and your restrictions stifle that spirit." Gasps rippled through the room. Some delegates exchanged worried glances, while others muttered angrily in languages unfamiliar even to the universal translators humming softly in everyone's ears. The council had always viewed humans as ambitious upstarts, clever, resourceful, but dangerously unpredictable. And now, their worst fears appeared to be coming true. Ilara shifted uncomfortably. She had spent years working as a liaison between Earth and the Council, trying to bridge the gap between two vastly different ways of thinking. But today felt different. Today marked the end of diplomacy and the beginning of something far less certain. As the formalities concluded and Earth's representatives turned to leave, Ilara noticed something odd, a faint vibration in her pocket. Pulling out her communicator, she saw an encrypted message flashing across the screen. "Beware the ripple." She frowned. The sender was unknown, and the words made little sense. Still, there was something unsettling about them. A chill that crept down her spine, even amidst the heated atmosphere of the council chambers. Back on Earth, news of the split spread like wildfire. Crowds gathered in city squares, debating what this meant for humanity's future. Some cheered, celebrating their newfound independence. Others protested, fearing isolation would leave them vulnerable to threats lurking in the dark corners of space. Governments scrambled to prepare for whatever came next, unsure if they'd just secured their freedom or sealed their doom. As night fell over Earth, stars twinkling brightly against the velvet sky, few noticed the subtle changes happening far beyond human reach. Stars began to dim inexplicably. Ancient ruins on forgotten planets hummed with energy. Fleets traveling near uncharted regions disappeared without a trace, and somewhere deep in the void, a quiet force stirred, awakened by humanity's bold defiance. The universe held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. A star flickered in the Andromeda quadrant, its light dimming for a moment before returning to its usual brilliance. Then another followed, and another, like candles being snuffed out one by one across the galaxy. At first, astronomers dismissed it as natural phenomena, stellar anomalies or interference from cosmic dust clouds. But when entire constellations began to waver, their patterns shifting unpredictably, even skeptics grew uneasy. Captain Rinkale stood on the bridge of the Eclipse Vanguard, his flagship, staring at the holographic display hovering above the control panel. His sharp blue eyes narrowed as he studied the data streaming in from deep space probes. "This isn't random," he muttered under his breath. "Something's causing this." Beside him, Lieutenant Niravos, no relation to Ilara, adjusted her headset, her fingers dancing over the console. "Sir, we're picking up strange signals coming from multiple sectors," she reported. "They're weak, fragmented, but they all contain variations of the same phrase. The seed has been sown." Rin frowned. That phrase sent a chill down his spine. He'd heard whispers of it during his time serving as a scout near uncharted regions of space. Ancient civilizations often spoke of seeds, symbols of creation, destruction, or rebirth. But hearing it now felt ominous. Whatever was happening, it wasn't coincidence. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dr. Ilara Voss couldn't shake the feeling that the universe was watching her. Since receiving that cryptic message, "Beware the ripple," she'd tried to ignore it, chalking it up to paranoia. Yet every news report about dimming stars and mysterious disappearances tugged at her instincts. Something big was unfolding, and humanity's departure from the Galactic Council seemed to be at the center of it. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at her office door. She looked up to see Captain Rin Kale stepping inside, his tall frame filling the doorway. "Dr. Voss," he said, his voice steady but urgent. "We need your expertise. There's something you should see." Ilara hesitated only briefly before grabbing her coat and following him to the nearest shuttle bay. Within minutes, they were aboard the Eclipse Vanguard, heading toward Proxima Centauri Outpost, a remote station located at the edge of human territory. It was here that the crew had detected an unusual energy surge emanating from beyond known space. As they approached the outpost, the view outside the viewport became surreal. Swirling clouds of iridescent gas twisted like living creatures, pulsating with an eerie rhythm. Sensors indicated massive amounts of energy radiating from the anomaly, far greater than anything recorded before. What could cause something like this? Ilara asked, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines. "That's what we're trying to figure out," Rin replied grimly. "But whatever it is, it started right after humanity left the Council. When they docked at the outpost, the team discovered evidence that confirmed their worst fears. Data logs showed spikes in gravitational waves coinciding with humanity's withdrawal. Even more alarming were fragments of alien transmissions intercepted by the outpost's receivers, all containing references to the ripple and warnings of impending chaos." Ilara's mind raced. Could humanity's defiance have triggered some kind of cosmic reaction? Or was this part of a larger plan orchestrated by forces beyond comprehension? Before she could dwell on the implications, alarms blared throughout the station. The swirling anomaly outside had grown exponentially, pulling debris and smaller ships into its vortex. Panic erupted among the crew as systems began to fail. "We need to leave. Now," Rin shouted, grabbing Ilara's arm and pulling her toward the shuttle. As they escaped into the safety of open space, Ilara glanced back at the growing maelstrom. She couldn't shake the feeling that the universe itself was responding to humanity's actions, and not in a way anyone could predict. The ripple had begun, and there was no turning back. Days after humanity's departure from the Galactic Council, tensions on Earth reached a boiling point. The dimming stars and mysterious disappearances had spread fear across the globe, but whispers of conspiracy began to surface as well. Some believed the Council was punishing humanity for leaving, while others argued that the anomalies were unrelated, mere coincidences blown out of proportion by panicked minds. Amidst the chaos, Dr. Ilara Voss found herself drawn deeper into the mystery. Back at her lab in New Alexandria, Ilara sifted through classified files recovered during her time as a liaison to the Council. She wasn't supposed to have access to these records. They were buried under layers of encryption meant to keep prying eyes away. But desperation had driven her to dig them up. As she decrypted one particularly stubborn file, her heart sank. What she uncovered painted a disturbing picture of humanity's relationship with the Council. For decades, the Council hadn't just governed interstellar affairs. They had manipulated human leaders using advanced neural implants. These devices, disguised as harmless medical technology, allowed the Council to subtly influence decisions, ensuring compliance without raising suspicion. Humanity's bold exit from the Council wasn't entirely voluntary. It was the result of breaking free from this invisible control. But freedom came at a cost. According to the files, the Council had installed a failsafe deep within Earth's core, hidden beneath miles of rock and magma. Activating it would destabilize the planet's magnetic field, rendering it uninhabitable. Ilara's hands trembled as she read the final lines of the document. "If humanity rebels, initiate Protocol Omega," it stated coldly. The phrase sent chills down her spine. Could the strange phenomena spreading across the galaxy be linked to this protocol? Was the Council retaliating for humanity's defiance? Her thoughts were interrupted by Captain Rin Kale's voice crackling over her communicator. "Ilara, we've got trouble," he said, his tone urgent. "Reports are coming in about seismic activity near the Arctic Circle. Something big is happening." Ilara grabbed her coat and rushed to meet him at the nearest command center. By the time she arrived, the situation had escalated. Monitors displayed real-time data showing massive energy surges emanating from beneath the ice. Scientists scrambled to make sense of it, their faces pale with dread. Whatever was buried there, it was waking up. Rin turned to Ilara, his expression grim. "Do you know anything about this?" She hesitated, then nodded. The Council planted something inside Earth, a failsafe. They called it Protocol Omega. Before Rin could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. A live feed showed cracks forming in the Arctic ice, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. Moments later, a shockwave rippled outward, knocking out power grids across half the continent. Panic erupted as news outlets broadcast images of auroras dancing unnaturally in the sky, accompanied by reports of electronic devices malfunctioning worldwide. Ilara clenched her fists, anger bubbling beneath her calm exterior. "This isn't just about punishment," she said through gritted teeth. "They're afraid of us, afraid of what we might become if left unchecked." Rin frowned. "What do you mean?" Ilara hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Finally, she sighed. "There's more to humanity than meets the eye. Things even I don't fully understand yet. But whatever secrets lie buried in our past, the Council doesn't want us uncovering them." As the two discussed their next move, a new report came in. Deep space probes had detected similar energy spikes near ancient alien ruins scattered across the galaxy. It seemed Earth wasn't the only place affected by the ripple. Something far greater was at play. Something tied not just to humanity, but to the very fabric of existence. "We need answers," Rin said firmly. "And fast." Ilara nodded, determination hardening her gaze. "Then let's find them before it's too late." But as they prepared to leave, she couldn't shake the feeling that the truth would demand sacrifices neither of them was ready to make. The derelict alien vessel floated silently in the void, its jagged edges glinting faintly under the distant light of a dying star. It was ancient, its metallic hull corroded by centuries of exposure to cosmic radiation. To most, it would have been nothing more than space junk, another relic lost to time. But Captain Rin Kale and Dr. Ilara Voss saw something different. They saw a chance for answers. The Eclipse Vanguard hovered cautiously nearby, its scanners probing the mysterious craft for signs of danger. So far, the ship appeared lifeless, its systems dormant. Yet there was something unsettling about it, a faint hum that resonated through the vacuum, almost imperceptible but impossible to ignore. "Are you sure this is wise?" Lieutenant Nira Voss asked from her station on the bridge, her voice tinged with unease. "We don't know what's inside." Ren glanced at her briefly before turning his attention back to the viewport. "No, we don't," he admitted. "But if there's even a sliver of hope that this thing can explain what's happening out there, we have to take the risk." Ilara stood beside him, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She had pushed hard for this mission, convinced that humanity's survival depended on understanding the ripple. Now, as they prepared to board the alien ship, doubt gnawed at her. What if they were walking into a trap? Or worse, what if they found something they couldn't comprehend? Minutes later, a small team led by Rin and Ilara stepped onto the alien vessel. Their boots clanged against the cold, metallic floor as they moved cautiously through dimly lit corridors. The air smelled stale, like rust and decay, and every step echoed eerily in the silence. Strange symbols etched into the walls seemed to pulse faintly as though alive. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered Sergeant Dax Corin, the team's burly security officer, gripping his weapon tightly. Ilara ignored him, her focus entirely on the markings. She recognized some of them. They matched patterns she'd seen in classified council files. These weren't just random designs. They were part of a language older than any known civilization. As they ventured deeper into the ship, the humming grew louder, vibrating through their bones. Finally, they reached a massive chamber at the heart of the vessel. In the center stood a glowing sphere suspended midair, radiating soft golden light. Around it, holographic projections flickered erratically, displaying images of stars collapsing, planets breaking apart, and civilizations vanishing into nothingness. "What is this?" Rin whispered, awestruck. Before anyone could answer, the sphere pulsed brightly, and a voice filled the room, not spoken aloud, but resonating directly in their minds. "You seek understanding," it said, calm yet commanding. "I am Solus, remnant of the precursors." Ilara gasped, her eyes widening. The precursors, an ancient race rumored to have shaped the universe before disappearing without a trace. Legends spoke of their power, their wisdom, and their enigmatic departure. And now, here was proof they had existed. "You awakened us," Solus continued, the words heavy with meaning. "Your defiance disrupted the balance maintained by the Council. The ripple you sense is the unraveling of realities." Rin stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "What does that mean? How do we stop it?" Solus paused, as if weighing its response. "Restoring balance will require confronting truths buried long ago. Humanity holds the key, but unlocking it may come at great cost." Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. "What kind of truths?" she asked hesitantly. "The truth of your origins," Solus replied cryptically, "and the purpose for which you were created." The revelation hit them like a tidal wave. Created? By whom? For what purpose? Questions swirled in Ilara's mind, but before she could press further, the sphere dimmed slightly, its glow weakening. "My time grows short," Solus warned. "Seek the Nexus Rift. There, you will find answers, and perhaps salvation." With that, the chamber fell silent once more. The team exchanged uneasy glances, each member grappling with the weight of what they'd just heard. Rin broke the silence first. "Well," he said grimly, "looks like we got our next destination." Ilara nodded, determination hardening her gaze. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was clear. Humanity's journey was only beginning. The journey to decipher Solus's cryptic message began in the dim confines of the Eclipse Vanguard's research lab. Dr. Ilara Voss sat hunched over a holographic interface, her fingers flying across the controls as she pieced together fragments of precursor data recovered from the alien vessel. Each new discovery felt like peeling back layers of an ancient cosmic onion, revealing truths both awe-inspiring and deeply unsettling. Rin leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching her work with quiet admiration. "Any luck?" he asked after a long pause. Ilara didn't look up. Her eyes were fixed on the glowing symbol scrolling across the screen. "It's complicated," she said finally, her voice strained. "These aren't just records or maps. They're memories, pieces of something much bigger." She paused, then turned to face him, her expression grave. "Rin, what if everything we thought we knew about ourselves is wrong? What if humanity wasn't born on Earth at all?" The words hung in the air, heavy and impossible. Rin frowned. "You mean?" Ilara nodded, pointing to one of the projections. It showed a swirling nebula filled with tiny flickering lights, each representing a planet seeded with life by the precursors. One of those lights was labeled with coordinates matching Earth's location. According to this, humans weren't native to Earth. We were engineered, planted here millennia ago as part of some grand experiment. Her voice faltered, but she pressed on. "The Council knew about this. That's why they kept such tight control over us. They feared what might happen if we unlocked our true potential." Rin ran a hand through his hair, trying to process the implications. "So you're saying we're not even real, just pawns in some ancient game?" "No," Ilara said firmly, her tone softening. "We're more than that. If these records are accurate, the precursors created us for a specific purpose, to transcend physical existence and become something greater, something capable of shaping reality itself." "But why keep it secret?" Rin asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "Why suppress that kind of power?" Because power scares people, came a new voice. Zixthar, the disgraced council ambassador who had joined their crew, stepped into the room. His golden skin shimmered faintly under the artificial light. The council feared losing their dominance. To them, humanity represented chaos, an unpredictable force that could overthrow their carefully constructed order. Ilara sighed, leaning back in her chair. And now, because of our defiance, whatever balance they maintained is crumbling. The ripple isn't just destabilizing space, it's unraveling timelines, collapsing realities. Zixthar nodded solemnly. Which means time is running out. If the Nexus Rift truly holds the answers, we must reach it before the convergence consumes everything. As the weight of their mission settled over them, Ilara couldn't help but feel a spark of hope amidst the dread. For centuries, humanity had struggled to find its place in the galaxy, often dismissed as inferior or reckless. But now, faced with the truth of their origins, they had a chance to redefine themselves, not as victims or rebels, but as creators. Still, the cost loomed large. Restoring balance would require sacrifices no one was prepared to make. As Ilara stared at the glowing symbols, she whispered softly, almost to herself, "What if the key to saving the universe lies in letting go of who we are?" Rin placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll face it together. Whatever happens, we're not alone in this." For the first time since the journey began, Ilara allowed herself a small smile. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and heartache. But deep down, she believed humanity was ready to embrace its destiny, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. Outside the ship's windows, the stars burned brightly, unaware of the storm brewing within their midst. The truth about humanity had been uncovered, and there was no turning back. The Eclipse Vanguard drifted silently through the void, its crew tense but determined. With the truth about humanity's origins revealed, their mission had taken on a new urgency. Reaching the Nexus Rift was no longer just a goal. It was their only hope for survival. But they couldn't do it alone. In the ship's main conference room, Captain Rinkale stood at the head of the table, addressing an eclectic group of individuals who had joined their cause. There was Zixthar, the disgraced council ambassador seeking redemption. Liora Kane, a cybernetically enhanced bounty hunter with a haunted past. Dr. Ilara Voss, whose brilliance masked the weight of her newfound knowledge, and several others, outcasts, rebels, and rogue aliens united by a shared purpose. "We're running out of time," Rin began, his voice steady but firm. "Every day, the ripple grows stronger. Worlds are collapsing. Timelines are merging. And if we don't act soon, there won't be anything left to save." Liora leaned forward, her mechanical arm gleaming faintly under the overhead lights. "And how exactly do you plan to stop this? We're talking about forces beyond comprehension here. Even with Solace guiding us, we're still flying blind." "She's right," Zixthar added, his deep voice tinged with unease. "The Council isn't going to sit idly by while we meddle in matters they've kept hidden for millennia. They'll do everything in their power to stop us." Ilara spoke up, her tone measured but resolute. "Then we prepare for the worst. The Nexus Rift holds the answers. We know that much. But getting there won't be easy. It's located in uncharted territory, guarded by treacherous wormholes, and likely patrolled by Council forces." Rin nodded, "Which is why we need everyone working together. This isn't just about humanity anymore. If the universe collapses, none of us will survive." As the meeting continued, plans were laid for their next move. They would rendezvous with a network of resistance cells scattered across human-controlled space, gathering resources and intel before making their final push toward the rift. Trust, however, remained fragile. Each member of the crew carried secrets, scars, and motivations that threatened to unravel their fragile alliance. Tensions came to a head when Liora confronted Zixthar privately in the ship's engineering bay. "You think I don't see what you're doing?" she growled, her glowing eyes narrowing. "Playing nice now, but once the Council comes knocking, You'll sell us out faster than I can draw my blaster." Zixthar raised his hands defensively. "I have no love for the Council," he replied, his voice calm but firm. "But neither do I trust thieves and mercenaries like you." Before things could escalate further, Rin intervened, stepping between them. "Enough," he snapped. "We don't have time for infighting. If we want to survive, we need to focus on the mission, not each other's flaws." Reluctantly, they backed down, but the air remained thick with distrust. Meanwhile, unknown to the crew, betrayal was already in motion. One of their own, a seemingly loyal engineer named Kalis, had secretly transmitted their plans to the Council in exchange for immunity. Within hours, Council warships were mobilizing, intent on intercepting the Eclipse Vanguard before it reached the rift. When the ambush came during a daring raid on a Council research station, chaos erupted. Blaster fire filled the corridors as the crew fought desperately to hold their ground. Despite being outnumbered, they managed to retrieve vital data hinting at the location of the Nexus Rift, but not without cost. Kalis's treachery was exposed, and he perished in the firefight, taking any chance of negotiating peace with him. As the Eclipse Vanguard limped away from the battle-scarred station, Rin addressed the battered but resolute crew over the intercom. "They underestimated us once. Let's make sure they never do again." Ilara stared out a viewport, watching the stars streak past. Betrayal stung, but it also hardened resolve. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain: humanity, and its allies, would face it together. The Eclipse Vanguard plunged into the uncharted depths of space, its engines straining against the pull of swirling gravitational anomalies. The journey to the Nexus Rift was fraught with peril, and every member of the crew felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them. This wasn't just another mission. It was a leap into the unknown, a gamble that could either save the universe or doom it forever. Captain Rin Kale stood on the bridge, his hands gripping the railing as he stared at the swirling chaos outside the viewport. The wormhole they were navigating pulsed with eerie colors, shifting hues of violet, gold, and deep crimson that seemed almost alive. It was beautiful, yet terrifying. One wrong move, and the ship would be torn apart by the immense forces surrounding them. Stability at 60%, Lieutenant Nira Voss reported from her station, her voice tight with tension. "We're holding steady, but these currents are unpredictable." Rin nodded grimly. "Keep us on course. If we veer off even slightly, we'll end up in who knows where, or worse." Behind him, Dr. Ilara Voss studied readings from the ship's sensors, her brow furrowed in concentration. "This isn't just a natural phenomenon," she said quietly. "These patterns, they match the energy signatures we found in the precursor data. Someone, or something, is guiding us." Before anyone could respond, the ship shuddered violently, throwing several crew members off balance. Alarms blared as warning lights flashed across the control panels. "Gravitational spike ahead," Nira shouted, braced for impact. The crew scrambled to stabilize the vessel, their movements frantic but precise. For a moment, it felt like the entire ship might be crushed under the immense pressure. Then, as suddenly as it began, the turbulence subsided, leaving everyone gasping for breath. "We're through," Nira announced, relief evident in her voice. She glanced at the navigation display. "And we've arrived." The sight that greeted them was unlike anything they'd ever seen. The Nexus Rift stretched out before them, an endless expanse of shimmering light and shifting landscapes. Stars hung suspended in midair, their light bending and twisting as if caught in an invisible wind. Rivers of liquid crystal flowed upward, defying gravity, while massive structures floated serenely, remnants of civilizations long forgotten. "It's breathtaking," Ilara whispered, her voice filled with awe. But beneath the beauty lay an undeniable sense of danger. The rift radiated power so intense it made their skin prickle, and faint whispers echoed in their minds, speaking in languages no one could understand. As they ventured deeper, the crew encountered surreal phenomena that tested their sanity. Time flowed backward in some areas, causing memories to replay vividly. In others, emotions became tangible, manifesting as glowing orbs that hovered around them. Each step felt like walking through a dream or a nightmare. "This place is alive," Sixthar murmured, his golden eyes wide with wonder. "It's not just a location. It's a living entity." Ilara nodded slowly, realization dawning on her face. The precursors didn't just create this. They are this. Their consciousness is embedded in the rift itself. Suddenly, the ship's systems faltered, plunging the interior into darkness. When the emergency lights flickered on, a figure materialized in the center of the bridge. A beam of pure light, its form constantly shifting. It spoke without words, its presence resonating directly in their minds. "You have come far," it said, its voice echoing like a chorus. "But the path ahead demands sacrifice. Are you prepared?" Rin stepped forward, his jaw set with determination. "We'll do whatever it takes." The being studied him for a moment, then turned its gaze toward Ilara. "Your role is greater than you know," it said cryptically. "The seed grows within you." Before anyone could ask what it meant, the figure vanished, leaving behind a single phrase that lingered in the air. "The choice is yours." The crew of the Eclipse Vanguard stood frozen, the weight of the rift's message sinking into their bones. "The choice is yours." The words hung heavy in the air, cryptic yet undeniable in their gravity. Each member of the team knew what it implied. Sacrifice. But who would bear that burden? And what form would it take? Dr. Ilara Voss felt her pulse quicken as she replayed the being's final gaze in her mind. Its focus had lingered on her longer than anyone else, its glowing form radiating an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Your role is greater than you know," it had said. She clenched her fists, trying to suppress the rising tide of fear and doubt. Was she truly destined for something more, or was this just another test? Captain Rinkale broke the silence first. His voice was steady but laced with tension. "We need to figure out what they meant by the choice. Whatever it is, we can't afford to hesitate." Zixthar stepped forward, his golden robes shimmering faintly in the dim light. "It's clear now," he said gravely. "To stabilize the timelines, someone must anchor them. Someone has to merge with the rift, to become part of it." Leora Kane scoffed, crossing her arms over her chest. Her cybernetic arm whirred softly as she shifted her stance. "Merge with it? That sounds like a fancy way of saying die." "It might not be death," Ilara interjected, her tone measured but tinged with uncertainty. "If the rift is alive, if it's connected to the precursors, it could mean becoming something else, a bridge between realities." Rin frowned, his piercing blue eyes scanning the group. "Even if that's true, who decides who goes? We're not flipping a coin here." Before anyone could respond, the ship shuddered violently again. Outside the viewport, the swirling colors of the rift began to darken, ominous shadows creeping into the once vivid landscape. A low hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. "We don't have time to argue," Zixthar exclaimed, his calm demeanor cracking under pressure. "Look at the rift, it's destabilizing. If we don't act now, everything collapses." Ilara took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She glanced at each member of the crew. Rin's determined glare, Leora's guarded expression, Zixthar's desperation, and realized the truth. They were all willing to step forward, but none of them understood the full scope of what was required. "Except her." "I'll do it," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. All eyes turned to her, shock rippling across their faces. "Ilara." "No." Rin protested, stepping toward her. "There has to be another way." She shook her head, tears welling up but refusing to fall. "This isn't about me anymore. It's about humanity, about everyone. I've seen the data. I've felt the rift. It chose me for a reason." Zixthar bowed his head, his voice softening. "You are brave beyond measure, Dr. Voss. But are you certain? Ilara nodded, steeling herself. I am. You all have roles to play. You'll lead humanity into a new era. My job is to make sure there's still an era left to build. Without waiting for further objections, she activated the ship's external docking sequence, preparing to leave the safety of the Eclipse Vanguard. As the airlock opened, she paused briefly, meeting Rin's gaze one last time. Don't let my sacrifice go to waste, she whispered before stepping out into the rift. The moment she entered the glowing expanse, the whispers grew deafening, wrapping around her like a cocoon. Light enveloped her completely, and for a fleeting instant, she felt infinite, connected to every star, every timeline, every heartbeat in existence. Back on the ship, the crew watched in stunned silence as the rift stabilized, its chaotic swirl smoothing into a serene glow. The anomalies plaguing the galaxy began to fade, stars reigniting in the void. But Ilara was gone. Only her voice lingered faintly in their minds. The seed grows. The rift had calmed, its once tumultuous energy now flowing in a steady, harmonious rhythm. The crew of the Eclipse Vanguard stood in stunned silence, their faces pale with a mixture of awe and grief. Ilara Voss was gone. Her sacrifice had stabilized the timelines, but the cost weighed heavily on everyone. Captain Rinkale stared at the glowing expanse outside the viewport, his jaw clenched so tightly it ached. He wanted to believe that Ilara still existed somewhere within the rift, her consciousness merged with something greater. But the emptiness gnawing at his chest told him otherwise. She had given everything to save them, and the universe. She knew what she was doing, Zixthar murmured, breaking the heavy silence. His golden skin seemed duller than usual, as though even he carried the weight of loss. She understood the ripple better than any of us. Leora Kane leaned against the wall, her arms crossed over her chest. Her cybernetic arm whirred faintly as she shifted her weight. For someone who prided herself on emotional detachment, she looked unusually troubled. Doesn't make it easier, she said gruffly. We came here for answers, not this. Rin turned to face them, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. Ilara made her choice because she believed in us, in humanity's ability to rise above. Now it's up to us to honor that. Before they could regroup fully, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Nira Voss rushed onto the bridge, her expression grim. Captain, we've got company. Council warships just dropped out of hyperspace. They're surrounding us. The tension in the room skyrocketed. After weeks of evading the Council's forces, the inevitable confrontation had finally arrived. Rin's mind raced. They were outnumbered and exhausted. But surrender wasn't an option. Not after everything they'd been through. Prepare for battle, Rin ordered, his tone leaving no room for argument. Divert all available power to shields and weapons. If they want a fight, we'll give them one. As the crew scrambled to their stations, Zixthar approached Rin, his voice low and urgent. There's another way. I can negotiate with them. Buy us time. Rin shook his head. They won't listen. You know that. They might if I reveal the truth about the precursors and the rift, Zixthar insisted. It's risky, but it could work. Rin hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Do what you have to do. Just stay alive. Meanwhile, Leora took charge of the ship's defenses, her combat instincts kicking into high gear. If negotiations fail, she said, loading a plasma cannon with practiced efficiency, we're taking them down. The Council fleet opened communications, their leader, a towering figure clad in ornate armor, appearing on the main screen. His voice boomed with authority. You've meddled in matters far beyond your understanding. Surrender now, or face annihilation. Zixthar stepped forward, addressing the counselor directly. You don't understand what's at stake. Humanity holds the key to restoring balance, not domination. Destroying us will only hasten the collapse. The counselor sneered. Balance? Balance is maintained through order. Your defiance threatens everything we've built. Before Zixthar could respond, the rift behind the Eclipse Vanguard began to pulse violently. A surge of energy erupted, engulfing both the ship and the Council fleet. When the light faded, the Council ships were disabled, their systems fried by the rift's overwhelming power. What just happened? Nera whispered, staring at the readings in disbelief. Ilara's voice echoed softly in their minds, calm and resolute. I'm still here, and I won't let anyone hurt my people. The crew exchanged stunned glances. Somehow, Ilara's essence remained tied to the rift, protecting them even in her transformed state. Tears welled up in Rin's eyes as he whispered, "Thank you, Ilara." The rift stabilized once more, its glow softening into a gentle hum. The Council retreated, humbled and shaken by the realization that humanity's potential surpassed their control. As the Eclipse vanguard turned toward home, Rin addressed the crew. "Ilara gave us a second chance. Let's make sure it counts." In the distance, stars twinkled brightly, their light undimmed. The universe had been saved. But the journey was far from over. Months passed since the events at the Nexus Rift, and the galaxy slowly began to heal. The ripple that had threatened to unravel reality itself had subsided, leaving behind a fragile but hopeful peace. Humanity emerged from the crisis stronger than ever, not as conquerors or victims, but as guardians of a new era. On Earth, cities buzzed with renewed energy. Monuments dedicated to Dr. Ilara Voss sprang up in every corner of the globe, her name etched into history as the woman who saved existence itself. Yet for those who truly knew her, Captain Rin Kale, Zixthar, Leoricane, and the rest of the Eclipse Vanguard crew, the memorials felt inadequate. Ilara's legacy wasn't just in statues or speeches. It lived on in the way humanity carried forward her vision of unity, courage, and boundless potential. The Council, once an unshakable force, now found itself humbled. Their attempts to suppress humanity had backfired spectacularly, exposing the flaws in their rigid system of control. In the wake of the Rift's intervention, they reluctantly opened diplomatic channels, seeking cooperation rather than domination. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy saw glimpses of true collaboration among species, driven by mutual respect instead of fear. Captain Rin Kale stood on the observation deck of the newly christened Horizon Vanguard, gazing out at the stars. The ship was larger, faster, and more advanced than its predecessor, a symbol of humanity's progress. But despite all the upgrades, Rin couldn't help feeling a pang of emptiness. He missed Ilara's quiet wisdom, her unwavering determination. She had been more than a scientist or ally. She had been a beacon of hope. "She's still watching over us," Zixthar said softly, joining him at the viewport. His golden skin shimmered faintly under the artificial light. "You can feel it, can't you?" Rin nodded. "Sometimes I hear her voice in my dreams, like she's guiding me." Zixthar smiled faintly. "Perhaps she is. The rift changed her, but it didn't take her away entirely. Her essence remains, a part of something greater." Far beyond Earth, whispers of Ilara's presence lingered in subtle ways. Farmers reported crops growing faster after hearing faint melodies carried by the wind. Artists claimed inspiration struck them during moments when sunlight seemed unusually vibrant. Even children spoke of dreams where a kind woman with glowing eyes encouraged them to dream bigger, reach farther. Lyra Kane, now serving as head of security aboard the Horizon Vanguard, leaned against the railing nearby, her cybernetic arm glinting in the starlight. "You think we'll ever see her again?" she asked, her usually gruff tone tinged with vulnerability. "I don't know," Rin admitted. "But if anyone could find a way back, it's Ilara." As the ship sailed through the cosmos, Rin reflected on their journey. They had faced betrayal, loss, and unimaginable challenges, but they had also discovered strength, purpose, and the power of sacrifice. Humanity's awakening wasn't just about transcending physical limits. It was about embracing their role as creators and protectors of the universe. In the distance, a faint pulse rippled through space, almost imperceptible. It carried no sound, yet it resonated deeply within those who felt it. Somewhere, deep within the rift, Ilara's voice echoed softly. "The seed grows. And so, beneath the watchful gaze of countless stars, humanity stepped boldly into its future, a future shaped not by fear, but by infinite possibilities.